Hello folks and welcome back to the channel. Today we're checking out something rather different. This is an Autopilot module for any flight sim. We're using Microsoft Flight Simulator today, and as you can see, this is a very interesting sort of little piece of technology here. Basically created by one man himself, and he actually did reach out to me a few weeks ago, so apologies Chris, I'm sure you're watching this. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get this video out. But I'm really intrigued by a number of things. A number of questions here. One, is it definitely worth the price? That's the first thing, isn't it? That's important. How does it perform? Is it sort of, VR compatible in the sense that can I use it in VR? And what's the build quality like? All those kind of things. Now at the moment there's, a number of different hardware options out there, including the Honeycomb Bravo sort of quadrant that has an autopilot module on it. I don't particularly have one myself, mainly just due to space. My desk is so tiny that really I can only fit the yoke itself and sort of a Logitech quadrant and my Cessna trim wheel. So, I really am pushed for space. Now this actually fits right on top of the Honeycomb yoke, and it's really clever with the way that he's added these little clamps, as you can see there. They get right in position to where these screws would be on the top of your yoke, and it sits there perfectly, and I think it looks pretty cool there. And it's very easy, I must say, to reach around in VR because it's right where you want it. So a big tick there for VR, very impressed. So really, the unit features 3 rotary encoders and 12 buttons, and in the package you'll see some unboxing now. It obviously includes the Autopilot module, which I have to say, build quality overall is very nice. I like the sort of aluminium surround. That gives it an air of quality. However, I must admit the buttons on the actual device do feel a little bit cheap. I mean, when I say that, I don't feel like they're going to break, not at all, but just the actual feeling of the texture of the plastic does feel a little bit cheap. But bear in mind, this is one guy making these, and I think some cost cutting had to sort of occur at some point during the process. But anyway, getting back to the device, it's worth noting that this has been inspired by a real JFC 500 autopilot module found on many popular GA aircraft. However, I don't know about you folks, but if I'm going to buy any piece of hardware, I'd like to use it with more than 1 or 2 different aircraft. This is where things get a little bit sort of sticky, because the autopilot module doesn't always work correctly with some payware aircraft that I've found, particularly say the Honda Jet. For example, the vertical speed slider, well, for me anyway, didn't seem to work. I also noticed with the Fly9 Spitfire, some of the sort of knobs and switches weren't quite working correctly. But you know what? You could quite easily add your own profiles, and I know many of you like to do that anyway for certain aircraft. So, I mean, you could say that's the same even with the Honeycomb Bravo. Now, I think the only other thing to mention is this device isn't really plug and play in the sense that you don't just switch it on and Microsoft Flight Simulator recognises it. You do have to do a little bit of work setting up your profiles. Now, there's 2 ways of doing this actually, and it's explained really well in the supporting documents. The first way of doing it is you can actually assign, a preset profile, like call it JFC 500 for instance, and then once that profile's created, exit the sim and go to your either Microsoft Store version or Steam version. C drive, users, app data, local, packages, Microsoft Flight Simulator, system, app data, then WJS. All you need to do then, once you've found that file, is copy and paste the information he's provided, which is a load of interesting sort of commands. I have no idea what it means, but you just copy and paste it, save it, and then hopefully once you get back in this sim, it'll all be done for you. All the switches will be exactly how they should be in terms of how their functionality works. Now for me, I found the first time I did that, it didn't quite work, but once I'd exited the sim a couple of times for whatever reason, Microsoft Flight Simulator did pick up that preset and it worked a treat afterwards. The other way of doing it, which might be, it might take a bit longer, but it's easy in some ways, is just doing it manually. And he does have a lookup table for all of the inputs, and I reckon it'll only take you a cup of coffee to set all those things in, and then you're good to go there. So again, it's not exactly plug and play, but I don't think much of the hardware out there is. And I know some of you guys, especially watching this, are hardcore simmers, and you do like to have certain presets set up. I mean, even though you've got the autopilot and flight director all on certain buttons, you can do what the hell you want with this thing and set it up to your liking. So what do I think about this AP module, having used it now for a couple of weeks, including shooting approaches with it, using the nav mode of course, and just generally using the heading controls and the alt select? Well, the only way I could answer that is if I stopped using it and see how it felt. And I tell you what, I really did miss it. To the point where I put it straight back on my yoke again. It's now become an essential sort of piece of hardware for me personally. I really love how compact and small it looks, and it really does look like a piece of quality flight sim hardware. You could almost mistake it for being a real autopilot module because, as I say, it has that sort of real aviation kind of quality to it, particularly with the aluminium casing. That's a really nice design choice. Now, this unit will be available for £130. That is the USB-C version. However, there may still be a few left of the USB version, which is £120. But either way, I think what Chris has done here is pretty remarkable, considering he's a one-man show, a passionate guy just like you and me, who's decided to take it upon himself to produce something like this. I would have not the foggiest idea of how to create something this complex, and I cannot believe the talent out there, really, because bear in mind, this is not a commercial vendor doing this and selling thousands of them. This is a guy making these pretty much bespoke to your order. So I think the price is pretty damn reasonable for what you're getting, but especially if this is something you're really looking for. I would also recommend that if you want further functionality, to invest in these SPAD Next drivers. A license for that is only €15, and that will give you a lot more sort of freedom to customize this to your liking. Overall, I really do love it, to the point where this is now an essential piece of hardware. You will see this on videos, and when you ask me what hardware I use, this will be proudly sat on my yoke. And you know, particularly for general aviation flying, it absolutely is something I'll be using all the time. Thank you so much for watching, folks. Please do let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? Feel free to subscribe. All the links for the Autopilot module will be in the description below, and I'll see you again very soon. Take care and bye for now.